guy David Odell here with Odell Complete Concrete. First day on this job site, and this is the before look. We're gonna be making we're gonna turn this whole front yard out, completely remodeling it, landscaping, driveway, new fascia on that existing wall. Here's an after view, a quick after view. We're going to do this in parts, all these video releases throughout this, and there's going to be 4 parts. First part, which is what you're watching now, is going to be focusing on the driveway itself, the removal and installation of the driveway area. And also we're going to show the drainage from the backyard that's already coming out into the front yard. We're going to continue it underneath the city sidewalk. We'll show that also in this part 1. So here we are. We have a little skid steer here, a New Holland, and this is the original asphalt driveway that all of these houses in this area initially came with. And there's only probably 3 or 4 left with asphalt in this area. They've lasted quite some time, maybe 40-50 years. So you can see underneath the asphalt driveways there's a lot of good road base under there. So what I want to do is salvage all that base, and I'm going to actually utilize that underneath the new concrete. Now they did have some concrete poured along that property line wall over there, and it was pretty hardy. It was a good 4 or 5 inches thick there. The way we broke that out, so we made sure we wouldn't disturb that little wall there, is we took the jackhammer and broke a line right along the wall. Then we could actually lift with the bobcat without disturbing the wall. This entire raised front yard is going to come down to the city sidewalk level, and it'll just be a straight grade slope, so you won't have a step off the front lawn. It's got some old brick here that's retaining the sod, and it's starting to come apart. So we're going to remove it all, lower the whole entire lawn down. So you can see the road base here is real nice, what they had underneath the asphalt, and that's what held it together for so long. Asphalt's really dependent on the base or the subgrade. Doesn't really have any structural value like concrete, so base is key. Just like for pavers, base is key. Has 0 structural value like concrete does, poured in place. Now that line you see sticking up there is the cable line. It has a sleeve on it. It's obviously going to be too high for the new lawn since we're going straight grade slope. I found the cable box that's right at back of city sidewalk. It was completely buried. There was no lid. All the wires came out of the top of the box instead of out from underneath the bottom. So that wasn't going to work either. So what we did, we called the cable company. They came out, put a new box in, ran a new sleeve and new cable, and buried it deeper. Here's what it looked like, what I discovered. Kind of looked like a bowl of spaghetti here. All the wires came out of the top of the box, and didn't make a lot of sense. So we had the cable company. They came out, reworked all that. This is also the neighbor's property line wall, and they have a raised front yard. So we had to think of a way to salvage that. And also, since we eliminated all the brick at the property that we're working on, we wanted to hide any brick fascia for this particular yard. So what we ended up coming up with was a brick poured in place concrete curb along that existing brick property line. And then we're going to stamp that, and we're going to stamp the patio, the new front patio. The new front walkway is going to all get a wood plank stamp. Looks like wood, and 6 inches wide, various lengths. It's going to be concrete. It's going to be two-tone to kind of go with the house, at least with the garage door and front door. in the grayish brown tone. There's also a drain line over here that we're going to have to push underneath the city sidewalk, so because it actually daylighted out through the front raised portion of the brick, and now we want to go under the sidewalk. Here's day one, what we've got accomplished here. We've got everything removed. The grass, the lawn, the sprinklers, the driveway out. Day two, we're starting to get prep our underground, because we're going to have low voltage lighting in here. In the new planter areas, we're going to have low voltage along both sides of the driveway. And we're going to have all new irrigation. We're going to have drip lines for the planters. We're going to have spray heads for the lawn, the new lawn. We're going to be using Marathon 2 sod here. It's a real nice hardy grass, stays green year round. Now here's our underground going across the driveway. That's going to be for water, and also I'm going to have a conduit for my low voltage to get some lighting on this side. That brick on that wall is going to get covered with, I'm going to use a color hardener, the same color hardener I use for the concrete, and I'm going to mix it with water and baste it onto that brick and stamp it out. And there's your pipe stubbed out underneath the sidewalk. I had a concrete coring guy do that and slip it under there, and I'll just cut it and attach to it. Here's the existing drain from the backyard, so we just need to trench that out and then continue the drain. Now, we didn't break the cable line or internet service. We were real fortunate with the removal of everything, so it's still in the sleeve and it's still working, and the cable company hasn't got here yet to relocate all that stuff. If you notice that property line wall, it's got two layers of brick on it. That's a 3-inch drain line. Solid. If you notice, the couplings are going up, the built-in couplings for the pipe. That way, when the water's running down, it actually works a lot better when it's in that pointing in that direction, your couplings. Here's how much slope we have. It's obviously a lot since we're on a pretty good incline. It's about 2 foot from the house to city sidewalk. And that's why they were able to squeeze in those little 4-inch steps on the original sidewalk, those little brick high. If you notice those landings, how they had it done before, we're just going straight slope on the new sidewalk. Much easier to get up and down. Right here we're grading and we're setting some forms. At the same time, we're working on this inside wall. We're prepping it for the overlayment that we're going to do on that brick. We were initially going to remove the brick off the wall, but it was on there so tight. They used some really good thin set. We decided to we ended up just going over it. If I can't get it off, then it's good enough to cover. That's the way I look at it. Put a little water down on the base, and then you're ready for compacting. We're going to have a nice 2-foot wide planter along this property line wall here. That'll get low voltage, and then whatever plants they select. The homeowners are going to be putting their own planting in. I'm just going to set them up with irrigation. I'm I'm going to use a bubbler hose. It has little emitters built into it every 1 foot. Also, it's a good idea when you do use that type of hose, the 1/2 inch with the built-in emitters in there. Once you decide where you're going to put the plant, you can actually plug in some 1/4 inch tubing, and then you can put it directly around the actual root base of the plant, which is what I would do in this situation. Those emitter hoses are nice, but it really doesn't get the water right where you want it. So I like to plug a 1/4 inch and put it right around the root ball. Our rebar layout is a 3/8 rebar, and we're going to put them at 2 foot centers. The driveway here is just going to be a regular concrete, no color in it, with a broom finish, and we're going to put wet joints in it. In other words, we're going to cut some weakened plane joints in the concrete while the concrete's still wet. Instead of saw cutting it, we'll just join it all same day. So the way these driveways are set up, they're not a straight grade slope. They have a little bit of a crown in them, so you kind of have to follow the contour of the ground with this. So what we have is 2x4s. We got about 24-foot driveway here, and we got 12-foot 2x4, so we can crown it real easily at the splice of the 2x4. So this is going to end up being a 2-pour job. One is the color, one isn't. Now here's the cable company with Verizon. Or is that Spectrum? Could be Spectrum. Yeah, I think it is Spectrum. Formerly Time Warner. Who knows what before that, but I'm sure it was something. Well, here's the existing line, and kind of going over. They're going to reroute this actually. Instead of running all the cable under the eave to the garage, all the way around the house, we're going to just go straight across the yard and straight up the house to the garage instead of under the eave all the way around, which will clean it up a little bit. That inside brick's going to come off right there. And then I'm going to pour a concrete curb to encase and reinforce the neighbor's wall. Then also we'll get rid of that brick facade for this particular property because they're going with an entirely new look. Right here I've got the expansion foam that I'm going to be putting on here, and what I'm using, you can use concrete nails on this if you have to. If you have a real dirty or a wet surface, of course you'll probably have to use that, but since we're real dry here, I'm using some 3M, and I'm just spraying the glue on here. I'll spray it on the concrete, and then also I'll spray it on the foam, and I'll let that get a little tacky. So as soon as I press the foam against her, it'll attach. This is a real simple way to put it on there, and it works really nice and clean. Now the way these foams are set up, they have about a 1/2 inch tearaway at the top, so you can pull that off later. After you've finished the concrete, you can pull that strip off, and then you can put some caulking in there and seal it up so water can't get in there. It's not real necessary, but it does kind of give it a little cleaner look. But whenever you get into caulking or things like that nature, it means maintenance. You have to do that every so often, probably every 5 years. Cut out the old caulking, put the new in. So leaving a gap might be just a little bit easier for anybody that's doing this. Today we're just going to tailgate this, which is not that common for me in the situations I'm normally in, but for this driveway we just tailgate it. You can see how rocky this mix is. Very rocky. Fortunately I had the concrete tamp today. And you probably haven't, if you watch any of my videos, you probably haven't seen me use a concrete tamp yet. They have roller tamps, they have the hand tamps, lots of different types of tamps, but I've got the old school, which is when you just grab and you pound it down. It's a screen, and what that screen does, it's smaller than the rock, so it's hitting the rock and the cream's coming up. As you pound it down, you're pounding the rock down and the cream is coming up, or it's staying up. So we poured this out in 2 bays. The first bay we laid down, tamped and bowl floated. Now we're moving on to the second bay. All the rebar's setting up on dobies. That's a 3-foot tamp. We have a 3.5-foot bowl float, magnesium. Not quite enough poles to make it to the top, but it's close. A hand float and a 10-inch walking edge will take care of that little top piece. Now what we're doing is we're getting ready to do the layout on the joint pattern. I had a little laser thing that somebody sent me, you know, that gives you the measurement. You point at something and it tells you the distance. It doesn't work very well outdoors, unfortunately. You gotta have big objects to point at, otherwise you don't know where you're pointing it. What would be nice on those little laser measuring things, if they had like a scope on a rifle that you could put on the laser thing. You could look through that and see where it's actually aiming, and then you could probably pinpoint what you're pointing at a lot easier. We're just going to divide this up into some equal sections and then wet join it with a 3/4 inch deep joiner. That'll be our final joiner, 3/4 deep, 1/2 inch round. But before we even run that, we'll run the 2.5 inch deep cutter, which just breaks your aggregate down all the way down to the rebar basically. And what that does, even if you weren't to join it again and you just sealed it up, it would still crack there because you separated the aggregate. Now we're going to pull a dry string line across nice and tight, and we're going to snap it. It's going to leave some nice marks in there that we can follow with the joiner tool. So we've got 2 coming across and 2 down. You can see that property line wall. I've already covered that with some spec mix. I mixed some spec mix with some concrete glue and then just troweled it on there and wetted the brick really good. That's my bond coat for my color coat that's going to go on there, and I'm going to stamp it out later to match the sidewalk and patio and the other property line wall. It's going to be all stamped face. Two joints each way. The 2.5 cutter already went through. Now we're just going to clean it up with a 1/2 inch radius, 3/4 deep, and that'll be our final look. Now we're running the fiberglass funny float just to knock out the lines from the joiner. The sooner you knock those out, the better. That way you stay flat and your lines are gone. Now we're going over it with Big Blue to really lay it down flat. Here's your second pass with your joiner. We've got expansion foam top and bottom. Since half of this is in the shade, it's drying at different times. So we're going to trowel out the bottom 3 panels. Get that nice, and then we'll broom those, and we'll just keep moving up the hill. As the concrete dries, we'll work it in the direction it's drying and keep finishing it. This particular mix here was a 50-50, and it was a 3000 psi 50-50. So that's what that means is it's got half of the 3/4 rock it would normally have, and the other half is pea gravel, and then the sand ratio is the same as it would be with that, and then it's got 3000 psi, so it's a 5.5 sat, half 3/4 rock, half pea gravel. Also, I added some fiber mesh in here. Fiber mesh, rebar in 2-foot centers, and big rock, small rock. Basically, it's got the whole enchilada in there. There's your broom. 50% horsehair, 50% nylon. It gives it a real nice finish. Also, this is a 4-part series, so in part 2 we're going to have we're going to show the patio stamp and the sidewalk entry stamp, which is the wood plank stamp, 2-tone color hardener. Also, we're going to be sealing that. In part 3 we're going to show the sod, the lights, the sprinklers and valves. Part 4 is going to be the front courtyard fencing. We're going to put redwood fencing up on the front of this property, right along the front porch. We're going to run horizontal fencing with about 2-inch gaps, 2.5-inch gaps in between each horizontal 2x6 redwood. But we're going to paint it. We're going to prime and paint it as well. And we're going to have, you'll see all the post straps we're going to put on the front patio as well. It's just going to be a little 30-inch high with a gate. Basically, it's a nice place to come out and sit, and you can have your dogs out there with you. As long as they can't jump over 30 inches, it works pretty good. So here's your finished product on the driveway. Turned out real nice. Anyway, thank you for watching, and make sure you look for part 2, 3, and 4 to see the completion of this entire job from the start to the finish. Now, if you don't want to miss it, you'll want to subscribe. You'll want to hit that bell so you can get the latest and greatest as I roll them out. That'll update you at the same time, and they'll let you know when I post something, so you won't miss the next parts of this video. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.